and that's it. So I look forward to addressing this and working together.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Becky?
So I appreciate the opportunity to start kind of delving into this. But, since we do have the opportunity here, I do have a couple of questions. And as I'm looking at the document, first of all, my first question is what the source of this document is and who wrote this.
Community members.
Okay, in the interest of transparency, can we get the actual source of this document?
Several of them.
So what
I'm not
exactly
answering any
is
more questions. We'll have a committee and we'll talk about it.
okay? So
What was the purpose of having this on here then tonight? If here we're supposed to discuss this, and again, I don't.
To let them know that we're looking into it.
But that's not how.
So I did some additional research since I'm on the ad hoc committee for this, and I wanted to provide a little bit of an update on what I had started to do and find on this. So the first thing I did was just simply Google TEA and social emotional learning policies, and so I thought the TEA website at least kind of gives some guidance here. It's under mental health and behavioral health. Positive behavior interventions and supports or strategies employed by schools to effectively teach, encourage, and reinforce pro-social behavior in and out of the classroom. A positive approach to working with students includes a focus on prevention and early intervention, teamwork between all adults, meeting students' need, and building a positive school climate. So, I'm kind of looking forward to possibly using that as a direction to help guide the additional crafting of this policy. One of the other things that did come up was so Conroe ISD put together actually it looks like they went through their SHAC. They put together a report on the social and emotional learning, and they actually, this was a really good document, and so I've had copies here for actually each of us and administration, because I think it might also help us guide the development of this document, because it talks about social emotional learning and how it's required by Chapter 149 Commissioner's Rules, some board policy, but they're legal, so I'm sure we have the same ones. The Texas Comprehensive Guidance and Counseling Model, SB 11, House Bill 1026, House Bill 4414, House Bill 1623, HB 18, and then a couple of sections of, I think, the Texas Education Code. So I just want to hand these out to all the trustees, whether they're on the committee or not. So I think those might be helpful as we go forward. Another thing that I did go ahead and take the initiative at doing was emailing Julie Wayman, who is TEA's mental and behavioral health coordinator, so that possibly we could get some additional input from TEA on implementing an effective social emotional learning policy, if indeed we actually need it. Even just looking at Conroe's policy that they put together, there seems to be quite a bit already enshrined in law and code. So as I read through this, so the next thing that I did is I called TASB Legal to get information from them. And that was not a legal opinion, I just called them to ask, hey, how do you go about breaking down this document? And the response that I got from them was they did try to skim this, but that they did notice a number of things that were wrong with this, that it would take them multiple days to review and identify the legal problems in it. And so, interestingly enough, they concurred. They actually did say they recommended that that this board do not advance this without legal opinion. So I think it is really critical that we do have some significant legal opinion on the document. So as I read through it, one of the things that kind of jumped out at me was that after looking at Conroe's policy and TEA's website and having some passing familiarity with the laws that surround some of this, is that maybe what we're not actually trying to implement here is a social and emotional learning policy, that maybe what we're looking at more is an instructional resources policy, or maybe, a district resolution, something along those lines. Because as I went through this draft document, I wasn't finding a whole lot that seemed to line up with the TEA guidance on social emotional learning policies. So, again, like the first two sections reference instructional resources, which really isn't social emotional learning policy. I mean, we could pass a policy that says the sky is green and grass is blue, but that won't make that true either. So one of my first suggestions will be to possibly consider changing the name of the policy. And as I went through it, there were just like a number of phrases and words that I think that we're going to want to define, like whatever artistic quality and technical. So what are we anticipating the meanings of artistic quality and technical quality to mean?
I guess we'll have to hash that out with the attorneys and make sure we define all this within the legal law.
Okay, since the community was involved with writing this already, I'm just curious what those were meaning.
We'll talk about it in the committee.
Okay, so you don't have any input at this moment on what the phrases artistic quality, technical quality, or artistic value mean?
We'll talk about it in the committee.
Okay, so
Please let the board continue the conversation.
so when I got down to section 1.37, it then starts to talk about so the instructional resources are designed to develop each student's civil knowledge, including, it goes on a number of things: self-government, history, traditions, civic engagement, talks about encouraging students to participate as a citizen in a constitutional democracy by voting. And so I think that'll be this sounds like it's more in the TEKS rather than in the social studies TEKS, rather than
So a lot of
as a
this will
social emotional learning.
A lot of this will have to be, so like I said earlier, there's a policy tree. So a lot of this policy that was, input from the community is going to have to be divided up with the attorneys. We understand that.
Okay, well, I didn't think that was an attorney question. I was thinking that was more along the lines of, do we think that that's actually, that civil knowledge is social and emotional learning? Can
On
you
how
help me
you put it within
understand-
the policy tree.
Can you help me understand how civil knowledge and knowing how to go vote is social and emotional learning, when TEA is talking about positive behavior interventions and supports and considers this under mental and behavioral health.
Well, like I said, this is just a draft. So,
Okay, so
we'll
what-
have, maybe you change up a classical social and emotional learning policy and you say classical and social emotional resolution.
Okay.
Talking
so-
semantics right now. The point is, we want to have a discussion that the community wants, where they don't want CRT.
Okay, but
They don't want inappropriate books. They don't want porn in
So-
books.
so
don't
no,
want
sure.
inappropriate
No,
material.
no.
I think we all can agree on that nobody wants that for their children.
So that's actually not what my question's about, though. My question is, why would you be calling something that is more in state law and in the social studies TEKS, social and emotional learning, when it's not social emotional learning, particularly as TEA seems to define it?
Because I'm not an attorney, that's why I want to speak with the attorneys. This
Okay.
isn't my wheelhouse. I'm not a legal scholar, so I will love to have the attorneys there.
Okay. Well, but I mean,
Right, well,
okay,
that's my
are
answer.
we wanting to just turn this over to the attorneys to write then? So I went through and had some more questions. Like for example, in section at the end of section 8 on that, it mentions the entirety of Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, "I Have a Dream," but then goes on to the next section and say teachers shall not be compelled to discuss widely debated and currently controversial issues of public policy or social affairs. And I didn't know if those two things might actually be in conflict.
We'll have to discuss that in the
Okay, so
committee.
just
And
Shannon?
really, I don't have to answer any of
consolidating
your questions. I'm
things,
just being polite.
right, so
I'm a fellow board member. I have to answer your questions if I
But
don't
you
want to.
brought this policy to
Right,
the board.
so
Discuss it in
you're
the committee. That's the whole point, is to discuss it in the committee.
you're referencing the TEA, and the TEA has said recently that the buck stops with the board. So again, we're bringing forth something to start a conversation that we can put policy in place that protects our district. That is the goal. That is the
So
point.
the goal is to protect the district.
And our kids, our parents,
Community,
and
teachers, it gives
protect, and our
guidelines.
district, meaning protect the people that are attending these schools and protect our taxpayers. So yes, this is a protection.
Okay,
Uh,
so
this
maybe
is
we want to
not-
call this.
this was-
a-
You can call it whatever you
I
want.
want to.
You go name the thing whatever the heck you want. The point is that we're bringing a starter to the table. You're gonna meet with your committees. Y'all are gonna hammer all these details out, and we're gonna come up with something that everyone can be happy with, proud of. We're protected by. I mean, this is a win-win. That's what this is. And so, in terms of that, I would like to also state, because again, in the training that I've had on this board, and it's been quite a bit, we operate as a group. So nobody operates individually. So I was a little shocked when my name was on there and was being called out specifically when I haven't seen that done yet up to the point in the 10 months that I've looked at everything that's ever been sent. So
the-
again,
the
we
names in the
went out.
document?
No, it was on the
The agenda item.
cover letter. So yeah, we did not operate in this
Okay, so who proposed this?
well, Casey and I
We
proposed it.
discussed it, and then we brought it to Dr. Ryan. And then we said, what's the process? The process
Exactly.
is,
Don't know how to do it.
we don't know how to do this. What's the process? Well, let's get the documents. We said, bring a red pen, give it to the attorneys, have them beat it up, have them marry it to the policy tree we already have. What's redundant that we don't need? What's another section you reference it to? People do that in law all the time. You reference to another section. And then you form the committee, you do all this stuff, then you bring it to the board, and then you pass it as a board or you reject it as a board.
Yeah, and the issue is that you bring it to the board for the first time, and you guys did not. You guys wanted to put it on the agenda before the work was done. And that's why we're having this conversation.
No, all we asked for was a policy update on where we were on the process.
You know where the process was. You know exactly where the process was, Casey, because you're on the committee. So when you are adding the item to the agenda, you're opening it up for discussion. That is how it works.
Jorge,
The
the committee was
community
just
does not
formed,
know.
and we did
I
not
thought
even
the
get
community wrote this.
some community members. Not
Does
everybody.
everyone know? The whole GCISD does not know.
I didn't meet
So
with
no.
all 85,000 people in Grapevine Colleyville. Just so we're clear for the record,
Okay, so who did you meet with?
community members.
Okay.
But the point is, we followed the process because this process has never been done before. Because
We had
no
done
boards
this
have
before.
brought policy.
We've had.
We had-
we've
we had-
had
told earlier.
committees.
No, we had done
And then the
committees
committee-
before.
You didn't even know what the committee process was, Jorge.
I know the committee process. I had done
Now,
it
'cause you
before.
just made
Yes.
it up a month
No.
ago.
That's not true.
Absolutely.
not. We have.
I mean, we can
definitely
discuss,
had-
we can argue all we want here, but we're gonna waste our time.
Policy, and you
Okay,
couldn't give it to you.
that's not on the agenda right now. The agenda
Yeah.
item is.
Well, we're
this.
discussing the process of how this happened, and that's the committee, right? Well, if we form the committee and I ask for the policy and how you form a committee and you tell me you don't have one, that's part of the process.
The president of the school board names a
We're on
committee.
item J discussing what happened.
We had done that before. We had done committees before.
You told me.
We have.
We've had committees
Yeah.
before.
I understand you've had committees, but related to policy creation. You said that
Yes.
did not exist.
Lisa and Leon and I have absolutely been.
Yeah, we've
on
done that
policy
before.
Well, I
committee
wasn't on the
before.
board when you, Lisa, and Leo were doing that, so I
we-
asked Jorge, the sitting president.
I did not say that. That's it.
Yeah, we've definitely had ad hoc
Yeah,
committees before.
we had
Lisa and Leon and I
not lying, that's what I
did
was
the
told.
Mm. Agree to disagree.
the drug policy. So again, so I guess this will be again, I don't have a problem with, being responsive to the community and looking at different policies or even just a resolution. I mean, there's a lot in here. It's 9 pages.
Robust.
And it is robust. I do know that when I talked to Tasby Legal, they saw a number of things in here that they did not think would fly and strongly recommended that we consult with the school district attorneys. And so I'm one big concern I have is that this isn't really what it says that it is. Social emotional learning is not what's in this document. And so we can talk about, what we want to name it, or
Semantics.
or
right?
we can talk about if we actually want to implement a social emotional learning policy, which I think,
Yeah, as
might
long
be
as it
worth-
addresses that, CRT is not a good thing, and
okay,
Yeah,
but
we want-
CRT is not
as long
social
as it
emotional
addresses
learning.
gender fluidity, which is what we have in this document, absolutely,
Okay, but
because that's what the community wants. The majority.
social emotional learning is not
Yeah, we
CRT.
have
So if
SEL in
you
here
want
too.
a CRT policy,
Character is
we
good.
can do that.
Work ethic is good. Those are parts of the TEKS that we have mentioned in the document. You can feel free to read it. It's out there. Anyone can go out to gcisd.net, go to the Board of Trustees part, and go pull down the packet. And feel free to read this. It might put you to sleep. You can read it tomorrow morning. I don't care. You can read it all you want and read it to your children. I think it's great for them.
See, and I
Hold
don't
on,
have,
Lisa.
I'm so sorry, Jorge.
Go ahead.
I was out of order. And I'll have to say that I think by doing that, it's very irresponsible. That you've put before us a policy that needs a lot of work. And again, it's
The
has-
draft.
It has nothing to do with the fact that you're bringing policy. It's irresponsible of how you did it. Yes, we do need to form committees. Yes, we have formed committees, and yes, I've seen a lot of committees. It's not up to 2 trustees or 3 trustees to decide who that committee is going to be made up of, and
We
then
didn't
to
do
go. Well, Casey, you just said you met with the committee. You met
that. We
with
didn't meet-
people.
No, we have a committee.
No, that
Coley.
you met
No,
with
no, no.
people.
To make this is what I'm.
individuals to get. I have constituents I report to. You know who my boss is? 21,000 people that voted me in. That's who my boss is.
But
So I go talk to them.
so instead of trying to make jabs at each other, or what I'm trying to say is just please let's just listen to what the point I'm trying to make. And that is you did form your own committee because you brought this to us. Now the committee will meet that needs to go through this and dissect it and discuss it and see what is legal and what is not. Now, I know we have a 48-page legal document that's already been proposed for this to discuss it, but that was pulled, so we can't discuss that. I'm just saying to me, it was irresponsible how this was done. We didn't do the proper procedure. It should have been presented and then the committee discussed on whatever is made for the leadership and the trustees, and then put it out there for the community to see. Yes, to say that we are working on something that's going to look at books, and absolutely, I think we need to do that. Yes, we need to be looking at books. Yes, there's some things that we need to be doing. But it's just the way, I just feel like it's irresponsible how you
For
went
the
about doing
record,
it.
I spoke to Jorge and Dr. Ryan on how we do this. I didn't know, so I went to them for advice.
And I told you to form a committee.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we
Oh.
remember the way that we do this process is you make a recommendation, the committee takes it, the committee makes a recommendation to the board, and that's when we put it on the agenda. You are actually adding the item on the agenda before the work is done, and that's the part that is not
Actually,
responsible.
I just asked for an update on where we were on the process. I did not ask for this document to be posted out there. That was your decision.
So I think we're misusing the word committee. You're asking who wrote this.
Yeah, and again, on the number one thing that y'all keep saying that the district needs to be more transparent. And so we pull an item that we were going to be transparent with. Now you're telling us you don't want to discuss it, or you don't want to tell us who wrote this. So
Because
we just
people come
need-
to you in confidence, you don't betray their confidence.
you just need,
Okay.
we just need to understand what your definition of transparent is.
There's plenty of policies I back that we have in GCIC, and I don't know who wrote them. I'm okay with it because I agree with the policy.
So I just would note that, for example, the District of Innovation policy that we just passed, or plan, I suppose is a better word. I mean, the DEC members are all listed right there. We know exactly who was involved with that.
And I would back
What?
that up.
One second. Can we allow Louis to make some comments? Louis, go ahead.
No. I was just going to back her up on the standpoint of, so you met with a community and helped write this policy. And you sit on a committee that was appointed by Jorge with you, Becky, and Coley. And yet you're asking for an update on something that you went to your constituents, and then Shannon, whose name's on this as well, says it's a win-win situation. How can it be a win-win situation when only a few people have helped written it? And then in regards also to the standpoint of you, both of y'all have said we can title it whatever we want. Your transparency definitions is very different, divergence and differing from what others think, because you want to be transparent. You don't want this draft shown or read, but yet you want to give an update to our community in terms of our stakeholders and our 86,000 residents of a project that can be named anything. And it's like throwing spaghetti on the wall, but you sit here and say it's robust. You sit here and say, well, we can trim it down. You can sit here and say that we want to clean it up, but yet you sit here and say, oh, I wasn't part of I don't know the other committee members that wrote policy. Every time that we have written a policy, there has been a committee put together, and those members are listed in that committee, just like DEC. And I think there was like 30 on them. And through the 6 years that I've sat on, it has been known of who those committees are. And sometimes it's just trustees, administration, and lawyers. And sometimes it needs to go out to the community as well. And so here you are taking community input, but yet not willing to back it or let it be known to this board. Because
Well-
you literally said, I did not want this published. Well, in transparency, why did you not want it published?
I'm fine publishing it eventually.
Because you just told everybody to go
wanted
read
to
it.
follow the methodology, which is what Jorge said. So there's two items, which was first follow the methodology, where I talked to Dr. Ryan this summer, said we need some policy on some of this stuff. So okay, bring some policy. So I brought some policy. Well, last time I checked, you can't bring policy unless you talk with people, get their input, and write it on something. I have to give you a written document to even look at and evaluate. Second, you're talking about committees for policy that already existed. This is new policy we are bringing to the table. So there's a separation there.
So parents brought concerns. Casey and I did the unthinkable, and we went and tried to find solutions to those problems. And now you want
No, I was just.
Oh.
They're trying to interrupt me.
and so now, don't laugh. I mean, that's insane.
That's all right.
Okay.
That's just that.
So now we're at a point where, okay, y'all want to criticize the crud out of this thing, go meet, put your input in here. Nobody is saying that this is the again, you start where you're not starting at ground zero. We're bringing some ideas, thoughts. This wasn't to, again, we were trying to be forthright, upfront. Dr. Ryan, did we say this has to be put in and this is what we want, or was it bring your red pen? How do we do this? We've never done this before. So why don't you fill us in on how that conversation
It was
went?
the latter.
So I'm perfectly happy to be transparent about all of the resources that I've tapped in evaluating this so far. First of all, it's the Conroe ISD Social Emotional Learning. I emailed Julie Wayman at TEA, who's the Mental and Behavioral Health Coordinator. And I have also looked at TEA's guidance on positive behavior interventions and supports in order to help craft a social emotional learning policy. So I'm very transparent. Who did you meet with to help write this policy?
That's attorney-client privileged. I met with attorneys. I don't have to tell you anything.
I'm sorry, you met with attorneys outside of the district then?
I met with people who have relationships with attorneys
Please,
and
audience,
attorneys.
please.
on input that are community members. So yes, some of them are attorneys, but they're community members, and I can talk to a community member.
Okay, so were they acting as an attorney, or were they acting as a
I guess
community
it's
member?
not privileged, but yeah. So,
So it's not privileged.
no, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell us who helped write this document.
I helped write it.
You helped write it. So which parts did you write?
I don't remember.
You don't remember.
May I ask,
Lisa.
what's our next steps?
I'm done answering questions. So
Let's-
No, that's fine.
everyone
What-
move to
I said that we will.
the make a motion. We move to the next item. Our where's the
It's-
little
It's okay. It's not a voting.
Not a voting.
Isn't- So we
right?
that was my next question is, I think we're beating a dead horse here. What is our next steps? So the community will know that this is not being put to the side, that we are looking at this. What will be our next steps as a district to now look at the proposed policy?
So we had the proposed policy, we had the legal opinion, the committee, which we named Ms. Cantor, Ms. St. John, and Casey Ford. Paula is also in the committee. We'll have our lawyers, might be involved in some of them, maybe not all of them. And after that, the committee will look at these documents. It will make a recommendation to the board, and at some point, the next 1 or 2 meetings, we will take a vote on a new policy. And that's kind of what the process is. I just want to make sure that I allow everybody to make comments, because I know we got some people talking and not others. Anybody else want to make a comment on this, Louis, Coley, or anybody else before we stop? No? Okay. Well, I'll make a comment. I appreciate the effort on putting this together. I mean, I have a lot of big questions and problems with this, and I'm just going to mention 2 of them that were pretty shocking to me. One is section 5.4, when he said the district shall withhold any payment to a subject person if the subject person is found by the district to be in violation of this policy until such violation is cured. This is a complete violation of a contract on an employee. There's also blatant violations of the board roles. But there's one that I just want to mention because it's just really interesting. Is I was a little shocked by this. I mean, I have a senior in college, I have a senior in high school. And when I read this, I thought about them. I'm gonna say this. It's just one sentence. It's on section 1.4. 1.4, page 2. Sure. Page 2, section 1.4. It's in the middle. And it says, teachers shall not compel to discuss widely debated and currently controversial issues of public policy or social affairs. And I thought, wow, even though I was a STEM guy, I'm an engineer, I love US history. That was my favorite class in high school. And I love when my teacher would bring issues that were happening in the US. I was in Puerto Rico back then, and we discussed those issues. There were great discussions. And the last part is particularly interesting when it says not to discuss controversial issues or social affairs.
It says not to be compelled.
Not to
it
be
says you
compelled,
can discuss
yes.
them, just you can't be forced. There's
Yeah.
a difference. And it says to do it objectively.
Correct. But I have seen people coming to these open forums and talk about CRT, and this is trying to address CRT. And I gotta tell you, sometimes I'm just confused about some of the comments that I hear that this thing is trying to fix, right? Because in my opinion, talking about racism is not CRT. That's not what CRT is. Racism is part of our history. Unfortunately, and I can tell you as a brown man in Texas, it is part of our present too. Racism is history, and it's happening right now. And we have a really good opportunity right now to contribute to stop racism from being part of our future. So my kids could have a level playing field, and kids of minorities in this country. And we have the future leaders of our country in our schools right now, right? So we have an opportunity to make them understand the tragedy of racism, okay? And how we can work together to eliminate it. We can't do it if we don't talk about it. We can't solve any big problems in our society unless we talk about it. I hear, well, we talk about racism, that's gonna divide us. We're already divided. We need to talk about these issues so we can fix them. And we have the leaders right now that are gonna do it for us, all right? So talking about our most challenging issues, social issues, is really the only way to fix them, So we have an opportunity to talk about these issues, talk about these social issues that we experience every day, and discuss them, train our kids to be the leaders we want them to be, so that in the future we don't have the same problem. So, I just hear the people talking, and I feel sad, honestly, because my experience has been pretty traumatic living in Texas, and I don't want my kids and kids of other minority parents to suffer the same thing. So for that, I'll say that I'm looking forward to the committee work on this policy, but we gotta think big picture. That we want our kids to talk about these issues. We want our kids to work together to solve these issues. That's what we're here for. That's what we're educating these kids. It's not about avoiding issues so people don't feel bad. It's about facing the problems that we have and tackle them and make this country the best country it can be. And we can't do it by just avoiding them. It doesn't work.
Well, let me add that. Yeah.
Shannon,
one
thank you,
here-
Shannon.
No one in this room, I hope, is suggesting racism doesn't exist. There's definitely racists out there in every community, in every culture, in every whatever. There's racists wherever you are. Okay. However, you say you want to talk about, this is what we're addressing. We are talking about this. We're just saying one race or sex isn't inherently superior than another race or sex. I think that's something we can all agree upon.
Mhm.
Right? I think if you're brown, black, white, or yellow or purple, it doesn't matter. What really matters is the inside, your heart. It's a heart issue. That's what matters. And so I think we have a lot we actually really agree upon.
Mhm.
And that's why having policy to define and clarify things that we agree upon as a district gives everybody clarity.
Yeah, but what I have mentioned, what I tried to say is that we see parents when they say, "Well, we're talking about racism, that's CRT," and that is not the case. I just want to make sure that I
We
don't.
need to define things and put policy
Yeah.
in place. Because the state agrees CRT can't even be taught in the curriculum.
Correct.
So we want to make sure we're not doing it through supplemental. That's another point of why we want this.
We don't really need a CRT
The
policy.
state backs me
Yeah.
and backs us. We don't think you should judge people on their skin color.
Becky, you got the last word.
Yeah, so if we want to do an anti-racism policy, then we can do an I misunderstood that we were looking to do a social emotional learning policy. But I look forward to working with the committee, cleaning things up out of here that violate the First Amendment, and instead actually do things that protect both our freedoms and our students.
All right.
I won't be calling it an anti-racist policy. Just don't be racist.
Thank you for all for the discussion. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item K, instructional material review process. Dr. Ryan.